how much profit the employer is getting from this labor. In some cases, it's much. In some cases, like the man of the Restaurant Association said, it's very little. Conservatively, could ask people, why did you drop out of school? Why did you know it? You're going to have children, you got to get skills to keep them. So this is all questions that could be asked. My main point, as by here, is would you consider is minimum wage, or that it be tiered, like industrial jobs, tiered, answer the question of fairness, the tiered according to whether or not the worker is full-time, part-time, head of the household, or not, or a dependent. That would make a big difference. It would tend, if it was part-time work for a person that is on their own, part-time work, it would open up jobs to 40% of people that are not working at all. It would be low paid. If it were heads of households that are full-time, those jobs would diminish, forcing the issue of how people are trained for jobs. Having gone through a master's program, the counseling that one gets is unspeakably poor. The aid to career development, I was sick, so it's harder to speak today. But even in high school, it appears to be that counseling is given in order to complete a curriculum, in order to make money for the school. People don't know what fields they're good at. And I have acquaintances, I was talking with a woman at Cafe Giordano, came in to eat at said restaurant, and she was saying she started in being interested in theater, got a degree, found out that wasn't the field, came back for another degree, got an art history, was going for a PhD in art history. Some people have the luxury of doing that. I've had the luxury of doing that. Some don't. The job training has to be changed so that people are pursuing their field, they're curious in the field. Schools have to be changed so people have textbooks that are current, desks. If anything, education and job training. Well,
thank you. Does anyone have questions? You're done. Thank you so much. You have someone make a comment because you have a child here, so we're going to jump to this. Your name on the list, please.
My name is Rebecca Wolke.
Oh, you were on the list anyway.
I own a business in Ward 20. I live in 48. My business is called buttonmakers.net. I grew up in South St. Louis and attended public school. In 2001, I moved to Seattle and opened my company. With no credit, investors, or support, I struggled working part-time at night for 3 years until my company became profitable. Today, almost 15 years later, Buttonmakers has 2 stores and 5 employees. I opened one on Cherokee as well. Even though my company is still small enough to be exempt from this bill, my employees all have health insurance, vacation days, sick days, a 401k plan, and most importantly, livable wages. Companies live and die by the demand for their products or services. If our communities have more money, they will spend more money, causing demand to rise, revenues to rise, and profits to rise. Indeed, since the passage of a similar bill in Seattle, our store continues to grow. It is nothing short of corporate welfare to allow companies to rely on poverty wages. People living on less than $16,000 a year must receive government assistance just to survive. We all pay for the services they receive through our taxes. It is unjust to shift this expense off of employers and onto taxpayers. Historically, our economy is the strongest when our middle class is the strongest. It is time we stopped funneling wealth away from the wage-earning consumers, those who drive our economy, and start rebuilding the middle class. I urge you to support this bill.
So, Is there any alderman who anybody has questions? Rebecca Campbell, thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
We have another, you want to go over the other side? Brian McKinnon. And I'm sorry, I was going to try to keep everyone shut, but I'm trying to be clear, which is.
My name is Brian Kinney. I live in Denton Park West, neighborhood, which is in my ward. I'm opposed to it to a point. I still have to look at the substitutions that you did. I'd have to run the numbers. They actually look really good just because it will actually match up with future inflation up to 2024. So I still want to look at those numbers. But yeah, if you started jumping at $10 an hour, it's going to kill a lot of restaurants. And how do I know this? I've been cooking for a chain 25 years. Thank you for that question. Yeah, I've been in the industry for 25 years, and I've been working for 28 years, trying to get out the field a couple times, something like that. Because that's what happens. I know my job really well. Right now, I'm making $15, 4.65 cents. To be exact, worker city casino and steakhouse. I'm currently part-time because I became a stay-at-home dad when my daughter was born 3 years ago. So right now, technically, I am making minimum wage because I'm still taking care of my daughter. I'm just working actually I'm only working 15 hours a week. My income is actually supplementing my wife's income. Now, I know not everybody can start their family the way that we did, wait until we got a little older, got set up, ready to go. I know that and I understand that. And I do know that a lot of people are struggling right now. But what I see is if you do raise the minimum wage, the jobs won't be there to have anyways. If the county doesn't put people, or people in the living wage range as well, why would the jobs stay here? They can just go, 8 miles? It's usually the average to get to the county from anybody's ward. Some wards are exactly on the border. Why not up to North County? Why can't they just go up to the closest city? Up to North County, they could open up a restaurant there, same as that, everything else. Now, from what I saw or what I think is, there's actually 3 different types of people. There are optimists, who are sunshine and rainbows. Pessimists, which are total Debbie Downers, and they have a rain cloud around them at all times. And then you got that optimistic pessimist, which is kind of an oxymoron when it comes down to it, but they're actually more of realists. That's what we actually need, more realistic ideas. The pessimist is actually very important to the optimist, because the optimist will come up with these great ideas, but in the end, reality has to hit. Last Thursday, I had the opportunity to ask Mayor Slade a question at the Denton Park West Neighborhood Association meeting. It got really heated because I wanted him to stay in line of the conversation. He spoke to us and said that this will happen. We will have a minimum wage hike. Okay, well, that's great. But he's like $15 an hour because that's what Seattle has done. San Francisco, San Diego, Los Angeles, Chicago. Now, I've lived in San Francisco. I've lived in Los Angeles. My brother lives in San Mateo, which is 8 miles away from San Francisco. Right now, he's paying $3,000 for rent. Or technically 3-bed, one's like a small office. That's the equivalent of about $650 here. Of course, their minimum wage goes up. It's basic economics. If you have something that is substantially larger, you have to get paid more. So the question I have to ask is, has any economists spoken to the Board of Aldermen about what the impact of St. Louis City as an independent city, one of only 42 in the country, if they have any alder or any economists have ever spoken to you guys about this? Because if they have, they're going to say, no, the city cannot do it by themselves. The state can. If the state raised it, everybody would be on equal footing. But if you take the footing out from underneath you, what's going to end up happening is you're going to fall. In the city of St. Louis, I do not want the city of St. Louis to fall. That right there is the most important thing to me. So, if anybody has any questions.
Anyone have questions?
I don't have a question, but I answer his questions.
Okay.
Well, so economists, there's plenty of studies out there that actually address, raising the minimum wage, both at the local level and the state federal level. I think it's been pointed out that it depends on who funds the studies. In terms of an economist, really there's probably only two in the country that agree with folks on the right side of things when it comes to minimum wage being tagged to inflationary practices and increases in inflation, when in fact you look at inflation mapped against increases in the minimum wage. Generally speaking, inflation continues to go up every single year between 1% and 3%. That's on average. And then wages generally haven't increased every single year. There's been 3 points in history where Congress has, at least in my lifetime, that Congress has passed, minimum wage increases that have been gradually adjusted over a time period of generally 3 to 5 years. During that time period, there's been a small spike in inflation for 1 year period, and then it goes right back down to where inflation had been before that. So, and it's not a statistically significant increase in the inflation when minimum wage gets raised. That's fact. There's also been studies in terms of when a municipality or a county passes minimum wage at a local level, that there isn't a lot of transgression across the border to go into a neighboring county. Baltimore, which is a sister city of St. Louis, is also a home rule charter city that's an independent city in the state of Maryland, has had a minimum wage that's higher than the state's on their books for probably about 15 years now. They have not seen mass exoduses into the suburbs surrounding Baltimore since they increased their own minimum wage as a city. So there's plenty of studies that are out there that show that that does not happen. That's generally a tactic that's used to frighten people around this issue. Also, the city of St. Louis, I know that we kind of have this losers mentality sometimes, but we have 320,000 people that call this city home. That's 320,000 consumers that spend money most likely in the neighborhood in which they live. Occasionally we have to cross over into the county because we don't have a Walmart, because we have one Target. Sometimes it's easier to hop on 55 and drive down to Lyndhurst. Sometimes it's easier to get on 70 and drive into North County because some of those retailers aren't present there. One of the reasons why they're not present there is because when they look at demographic numbers in the city, we don't have very high levels of consumer spending. Part of the reason that we don't is because we have working poor. So, when it comes to the city taking the stand, not only do we have 320,000 consumers that live in the city, but we also have the second highest employment base in the entire state of Missouri. So we have people who come into the city from outside, the surrounding region, whether that's Madison County, St. Louis County, St. Charles County, that work here. Those are people who also spend money in the city, whether that's downtown, South St. Louis, North St. Louis, etc. Those are consumers as well. And this bill obviously will make a difference for those folks, whether they live in the city or elsewhere. And so I hope that answers some of your questions. It may not appease you, and it probably open up more, but so yes, there was some thought put into that as well.
So one, to answer your first question. No, we have not had the conference speak to us yet. I hope that does happen. I've inquired some economists at Washington University about this. So there are more than two economists in the country that have, in fact, there are more than two in the same room in Washington University who have shared some concerns. And some of the studies that have been cited throughout the meeting, I think it's actually a little bit disingenuous, because there is a difference between the minimum wage increase, period, and the level at which you increase the minimum wage. And so while increasing the minimum wage 25 cents may have no impact at all, because practically no one makes that. As some business owners have said, if you increase it up to 25, increase it up to $10, it may not have an effect on them if their average employees make less. If you increase it by 100 or 125% on some people, that's going to have some effect. And so I also do appreciate some of your concerns too, which are actually some of my concerns about what the effect there would be if the city doesn't allow it. Because yeah, we do have 300,000 people in St. Louis City, but that's 500,000 less than we had 50 years ago. People continue to leave the city. And for many of us who represent communities that are constantly fighting for businesses, I am very concerned with what effect this will have with us we already compete, frankly, with other neighborhoods in St. Louis City to get businesses. In fact, sometimes our own government is working against us to try to get those businesses north. They encourage them to go central. But now, if we have this huge disparity with the single largest cost factor for businesses between our neighborhoods in North County and North City, I mean, I am concerned about that. So I do hope we do eventually get to that testimony. And there are some very bright minds here in St. Louis that could testify and give us some information on that.
Just wait one more quick statement. Has anybody ever looked at the impact that it would be on people who have retired, on Social Security, disability and stuff? Because once the inflation will happen, because it will happen when you raise the base, everything goes up a little. The impact of what they might get, because if somebody is on a fixed income, they're not going to get more money. This is what it's fixed at. So I'm more concerned about if it goes to $15 an hour, that's not going to go up. Social Security is not going to pay it more unless it goes up, and then it will go more, because that's. So I just want to make sure that gets thrown out there, because there's a lot of elderly people out there that also need to be watched out after. And I've heard anybody mention anything about people on fixed income.
To be clear, I mean, that's always a consideration of mine as well.
I'm sure it is.
Something that-
I know you know.
But like I said, inflation continues to go up regardless of whether or not the wage is raised. Inflation happens. So, that person who's living on a fixed income, regardless of if the minimum wage gets raised, is still going to have to deal with inflation. So, I mean, that's always a concern.
It's not federal inflation, it's city inflation. Federal inflation will also get supplemented for Social Security and all the others, but the city is
Not as a rate of which
the city of St. Louis is going to work over extra money, so.
I would see these guys on this actually. Because we're really, because people have jobs, so we're trying to make this up by 9 or 9:30. We still got about 20 people that haven't spoken yet. Well, that's my goal. I do want to be fair. But Carlos, thank you for coming on. Brian, Murphy, they have to jump you up there because it's leaving. But how you doing?
I'm good. How are you all?
Good.
And as most of you know, I'm not Brian Murphy.
No, I was just saying.
But I am speaking on his behalf. He had to leave. He was able to remain for the entirety of the meeting. I'm going to read his statement.
Your name?
My name is Joanne Williams, and I am a citizen of the city of St. Louis, the 21st Ward, formerly a city employee, formerly Secretary Treasurer AFSCME, formerly business representative of the Department of District Council.
And one of the best part, keep people in the city.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Aldermen. My name is Brian A. Murphy. I am president and owner of BAM Construction, a construction company that's based in the city of St. Louis, employing approximately 120 persons in the region. I'm here to testify on behalf of Board Bill 83 to increase the minimum wage in the city of St. Louis. While I appreciate the mayor and members of the board taking leadership in the city on this issue, I would also favor an increased federal minimum wage. Proposal raising minimum wage would be an immediate increase in income and living standards for the working poor. I am signatory to the Carpenters Union, and my workers start at a wage and benefit level of $17.18. I have also been around for many years to hear the gloom and doom rhetoric and services each time raising the minimum wage is proposed. For the most part, When you give the city's lower paid workers a raise, it gets filed right back into the economy. This is the type of spending that drives our economy and creates more jobs. Mostly, I'm just tired of hearing that giving more benefits to those at the top of the ladder creates more jobs. Mostly, I'm just tired of hearing that giving more benefit to those at the top of the income ladder is the only good way to drive our economy while doing things for people who work as a low end can't contribute. We need persons like me who create jobs in our economy, but I'm proud of the fact that I pay my workers a wage that they can raise a family with. I'm also the father of a developmentally disabled son who each and every day goes to work at a sheltered workshop called Industrial Aid. So I'm pleased that the authors of this bill allow an exception for young adults like my son to be productive members of our society, lowering government subsidies and allowing their parents and caregivers to work and be productive. I have heard the arguments against businesses with raised prices, jobs and benefit cuts, reduced the desire for career advancement. They do not hold up with my past experience. There have been no massive layoffs or economic catastrophe when minimum wage has gone up. I heard your support. Brian Murphy, for those of you who don't know, is a former director of the Community Development Agency for the City of St. Louis. I also had the pleasure of serving with him as a board member on the St. Louis Housing Authority as a member. I have worked in the city, and one of the things that has been beneficial for me is to see how this board works. Never has there been any led movement by any company to raise employees' work. There's been a lot of talk about Walmart raising theirs, but they didn't after they were forced to do it after 30 years of pressure, after the board being found to be incapable of sustaining good employees at the wages that they were working, as well as people like myself who won't enter their doors. I have shopped literally all my life. To this day, I would not get a shell a dime because they refused to divest from apartheid when that was an issue. So there are consumers like myself who follow the good employer. I like Earl Schultz of Starbucks, who believe that employees should have paid medical insurance and refuse when it went public his stockholder suggestion that they reduce it so they can increase their profits. He has maintained that the moral value of providing medical insurance for those who work for him far outpaces the necessity to add an additional dollar in profit. There's an equity issue here. The majority of poor people in this country, in this world, look like me, or younger than me, children. Women and children disproportionately make up what constitutes the working poor in this country. The United States was one of the last countries in the world to implement minimum wage. New Zealand did it first. England did it first in the 1800s. We didn't do so until the 1900s in this country. And forever, when you talk about fixed income, how much more fixed is your income when you are on minimum wage? As a fix, they are subject to the cost of living increases like you are Social Security. You know, it just so happens that a year and a half ago, I became one of those retirees on a fixed income. And I tell you right now, I support this bill. I support it because to not do so means that our Social Security system also continues to decrease while people like myself live longer and draw more money out, while those who are working hard now have less of opportunity to earn it. I continue to do so because when you talk about rent only as part of the cost of living, you ignore the fact that because of the birth system, we all pay more for eggs, whether you own a restaurant or you're just a family member. We pay more in milk and meat because there's a drop in California. We pay more in every consumable goods, even though their income does not fluctuate to incorporate that. I think it's cruel to expect poor people with a finite amount of income and access to have the ability to spend their money as frequently as those of us who may have access to public parks, go shop outside of their neighborhood and see the crowds. A lot of the obesity, health issues, all of those things are based on the fact that poor people in urban areas have limited capacity to go elsewhere to expand their dollars are trapped in a no-win situation. You think with your $180 million property tax increases that's not going to trickle down to the poor they pay rent? You think a property owner is not going to increase his rent so that passed on to the consumer? So If I go to a restaurant and pay a little more, but know that's a responsible restaurant owner who's paying their person, I will give them my business. I will go anywhere in the city where there is responsible business owners. Most union people do. Union people always look for those responsible owners. One of the things that Brian supplied, and I'll be willing to give to you too, is our wage rate. In 1999, the carpenters raised our minimum starting wage is from $9,000 an hour to over 10. Why? Because the average carpenter who's entering the apprenticeship program used to be 18. It's currently 26. The average age of most workers who are entering trades and other trades is 30. They're older, they have families, they have an average of 1.5 child each one. So you can't pay them as if they're high schoolers. To ignore the fact that we went through an economic downturn to the extent that we did, 5 years ago now, they had more adults applying for summer employment than they did children. Because adults had to pay take care of their family. 1989, 2009, I opened a food pantry for unemployed persons to give them money and food to offset the cost of what their unemployment and their food stamps will not cover. We're not talking about some philosophical idea that people would immediately go out of business. You talked about negotiating incrementally how this could be less impacting on businesses who may not be able to afford the cost of crime. That's good, but to not pass this bill is unconscionable. All politics are local. People keep talking about the federal government raising or their support the state raising. When the state won't even come down the health insurance for political reasons to provide Medicaid, farms and businesses are making decisions to leave rural communities because they're subsidizing healthcare in areas that they can get compensated for. So to ask the Levinson brothers to continue to do something that we know the federal government and the state government is not going to do, and not step up to the plate and try at least so that people can afford to go to that hospital, I've been going to switch to this doctor's office. Because I have a good doctor, but I have never heard a doctor talk about the responsibility of an employer the way that he did. I'll take my money and make sure that I reward people who engage in good business practices. And I think that you should do the same. To hear the possibilities of what may happen if you pass this bill is nothing compared to what will happen if you fail not to pass it. Poor people will continue to be poor. Your water bills have gone up twice in the last 5 years. They have to pay for that because they're going to get bills. They have to pay for trash that's been passed on from landlords to them. Everything that you do economically, somebody has to pay for it. And if they have no more money except to pay for their immediate needs, there's no one left to pay for their wants.
Joanne, thank you so much. We're going to try to stick with the 9:30 really warm. And I think we've got a pretty good feel for those second really good testimony.
Okay. My name is Nathan Cook. I'm a district manager for Domino's Pizza. We have 5 stores here in the city. I started in 1994 as a delivery driver, making minimum wage. When I first became a driver, 90% of the franchisees in the Domino's Pizza system started off at an entry-level job, whether it was a driver or CSR hourly wage. We provide more than just training for Domino's Pizza. A lot of our employees are first-time they come to the workforce and start their jobs. A lot of them, they come in. We are not opposed, or we're already forced to pay a lot of our employees more than minimum wage to be able to keep them. These are usually our best employees. We're not opposed to paying a fair wage, but it needs to make sense for our business model, and then we have to assess our return on our investment. My biggest fear is when it goes to $15 an hour, it's going to be a triple up effect. The CSRs, the drivers, they're going to get $15 an hour, but then my assistant managers, the people that run the store, my manager's gonna have to pay more. My assistant's gonna have to pay $2 to $3 more, maybe 4, and my manager's gonna be probably 5 to 8. We do have small margins, like Bob said earlier. Every ounce of cheese that we put on a pizza, every penny of our labor dollars, it matters. It could be matters. It could make the difference between of our stores making money and losing money. Later on, if you go to $10, $11 an hour, our stores would be there where we would be losing money, and it would be where it would be. It would be how long before we have to shut our doors. That's all.
Any questions? The questions come from up here.
May I?
Yes.
I appreciate you coming here. I actually have my Domino's Pizza tracker on my iPhone here. I've ordered Domino's Pizza June 21st, June 18th, May 15th, May 5th, and April 9th. And that's just online. You mentioned that, a good majority of your workforce, this is their first time job. I can tell you that when they show up at my front door, there's a guy that's probably in his 60s or 70s that's been delivering pizza to my house. I cannot imagine that this is his first job, working as a delivery man for Domino's Pizza. More recently, because I actually do try and get to know some of the guys and women that are delivering to my house. There's not many women, unfortunately, but they're fathers in their 30s. I have not seen a teenager delivering a pizza to my house, and pretty much all the 10 years that I've been living there, and every other week that I order Domino's Pizza. So I take some grain of salt with your comments in that regard. I live probably about 2 blocks away from your location at Grand and Walsh. I can probably get my pizza delivered within 15 minutes. I can usually order it while I'm at a stop sign at Grand and Arsenal and have it delivered to my house by the time I'm pulling up from a busy day. So I've seen the advertisements out front for the hiring. You guys, I think that location probably has a pretty high level of turnover from what I have seen in terms of the folks who are delivering to the house, and also when I go into the store to pick up and all that stuff. And I do know that store in particular has paid higher than the minimum wage in order to attract workers. So I appreciate that, and I think some of my friends at the Shelby Institute would attribute that to market forces. But I'm hearing your testimony, and I want to have a better understanding of what is permissible for you? What do you like? Everyone wants to come up here and oppose something, but I mean, you represent franchises, which is the first time, and I hate to kind of single you guys out, but it's the first time that any type of business that's relying upon franchises has come to the podium. So, what do you think is a reasonable minimum wage to be paid in the city of St. Louis?
For all businesses, for our model, I'd have to go back and look, whether it's $9, $10 an hour.
I'll be more than happy to give you my business card so that you can share that information with me offline.
We've had to increase the pay that we do for our assistant managers to make it work. We do have a lot of people that do come in, this is their second job, so it's been other. We have a lot of our CSRs, this is their first job, they keep walking in. Like you said, there's a lot of turnover, high turnover, and sometimes they don't show up. And then guess who, we paid all the money for training. 5-6 months down the road, they're gone. But,
Can you elaborate on that a little bit for me? Why are people quitting? Is it because they aren't able to show up because they don't have transportation? Is it because they're too busy taking care of their kids and can't afford daycare? Is it, because they got sick and, missed days because they can't afford healthcare? Can you elaborate on what are the reasons for turnover within your organization?
I think, sometimes I don't do ask them after the fact. Sometimes we don't know.
You guys aren't doing any type of exit interview to understand why people are leaving.
If somebody comes on
They're
schedule,
gonna train them.
if somebody comes schedule and they don't show up, and odds are we call them, they're probably not answering the phone.
Well, I'm gonna give you my card so we can talk another time, but I appreciate your testimony.
Nobody's question. Thank you so much. I'm gonna go start going down the list, you know, if what you're saying is already been said, you just repeat it, just for time's sake, okay? So, Jamila Rogers.
Jamala.
Well, I don't. Jamala, I apologize for you. But, let's go to
So, thank you for having this public testimony, and, my name is Jamal Rogers. I come here as a concerned citizen. I'm an advocate for youth, I'm an advocate for strong families, and obviously strong families make strong communities. As of January 1, there were about 15 states that raised their minimum wage. And there'll be 3 or 4 others by the end of the summer. And so I just say that to push back on the idea that somehow minimum wage raising is a negative. Because last time I heard, Nebraska, Maryland are still standing as states. So the sky did not fall. I also think some of the issues that I wanted to raise have been raised quite eloquently, particularly by Joanne Williams. But I do want to speak to the fact that I am opposed to minimum wage. Because what you do is create a cycle. So we raise minimum wage today, and then as a result of that, all the goods and services get raised, and people are right back in the same place. So 2 or 3 years down the line, we raise it again, only to happen. I am for a livable wage. A livable wage that includes automatic inflation, cost of living, all of that, so that we don't have to keep coming back to the table. I also am opposed to this bifurcated pay raise for young people. Now, we've been working very hard for equal pay and equal work. So if a 70-year-old is doing a job that a 71-year-old is doing, that person needs to get paid the same amount. I don't think that there's any distinction. And there's also assumptions that that young person doesn't need that money. And I think what we know, at least what I know as a former commissioner of youth in St. Louis, is that a lot of times we're looking at emancipated youth who are taking care of themselves for whatever reason. We also looking at young people whose income is part of the household income. And so when they don't have any money, that means the household doesn't have money. So us to say this could be 6 years, you don't get the same pay, even though you're doing the same work, to me is unfair and unjust and ludicrous. I also want to just end by saying that we really need to step back and look at a different kind of vision for the city and not look at the very least common denominator. And so we've heard people who talk about what it means when you don't have a livable wage. It truly is life and death. We've heard that. And so when we think about what kind of city are we trying to create, do we want a healthy city? Do we want a safe city? Do we want people who have the ability to buy goods and services? Of course we do. And so starting out at the least is not where we need to be. We need to be looking at a very broad way at a new vision for the city. And I say it's about a livable wage and not about this incremental stuff, so that by the time we win the fight, it's time to start a new one all over again. A livable wage is what we need. The families who are making a livable wage are saying that. The low-wage workers are saying that. President Obama is saying, give America a raise. I ask you to support 4 bills.
Any more questions? I'm really good at learning names. If you ever notice I have one language,
I'm Gary Kuchowski. I work for Domino's Pizza here in St. Louis. We operate 5 stores. We have roughly over 120 employees that operate in the 5 stores. And I just wanted to come up and talk about the numbers that the Restaurant Association shared. We went back to the table and analyzed our numbers, put employees in spreadsheets and Excel spreadsheets. The numbers are alarming for us to be able to figure out how we're going to go back to the table and create a system that works for us. Naturally, we want to continue to offer a great pizza at a great price. And we're known for the $5.99 pizza, medium pizza, 2 topping. And when you throw in these types of increases for us, per store is $40,000 at the beginning, upwards of $200,000 that we have to add to our, go back to the table and figure out how we're going to make that up. And it's a big number. I just want to make sure you guys are aware of that. For most restaurants, it is a big number to go back to the table and try to make up. We're all for, we're part of the community. We're trying to get as many jobs. I started 30 years ago in the pizza business. We're locally owned. I started as a pizza driver and worked my way up to assistant manager, supervisor, and into the position I've had, for the last 30 years. So we make pizzas. We just got to go back to the table and figure out how we're going to afford this, and most businesses have to do that. And I ask you guys to really look at the numbers and to figure out how the average business is going to be able to make that difference. It's a huge transparency that we have to figure out and be able to afford. We love everybody to make a good wage. We're trying to offer opportunities within our own organization so our new people can move up the chain and make them. But I just want you to consider that for most businesses, it's a big number, and it's a big number for your average store. We have 5, and it's a very large number.
I will keep it very short, since I've been called out on my pizza addiction on Twitter.
We appreciate your business.
I appreciate your handmade and tossed pizza. It's a medium 2 topping pizza that I pay $8.99 for, and I really love Emo's pizza as well, and I think Korea pizza in general. So now that that's all out in the public domain. I actually have not had a $5.99 pizza ever at Domino's Pizza, so I'm curious, even with coupons, I usually take it down below $7.99. At $5.99 though, that represents after taxes about 2 hours worth of work, or at least, well, $5.99 would be about an hour's worth of work after taxes for one of your employees that would possibly be making minimum wage. So, I gave my number to one of your colleagues, and I don't know if you two communicate, but I would very much want to sit down with you and understand what it is exactly you're able to afford. Because, I'm hearing from folks in the restaurant industry that, this is too much, too high, too fast. But no one, not one person, has offered any constructive feedback to me in terms of what they are able to do to help the situation out. So I would very much want to have that conversation with you as well.
Thanks. So a couple of questions here. Could you explain your business model to me a little bit? What is your relationship with Domino's corporate, and how do you, license your stores, or how do you that work?
So we're part of a franchise group. For example, to be able to franchise within Domino's Pizza, you have to manage a Domino's Pizza store for 1 year. Then you're eligible to buy in as like any other franchise. So we're locally owned. Our owner has lived in St. Louis for the last 30 years, and I'm working with him.
How much does it cost to buy the franchise?
Since I'm not a franchisee, I don't know, but I know it's very, very reasonable. It's one of the cheapest franchises to buy in.
Okay. Do you have any understanding or knowledge of what the owner of the 5 stores, what kind of salary he's drawing?
I don't. I can tell you over the last 30 years with cheese prices and commodities, we have struggled. Pizza business has been, in the 80s it was a good business, but in the 90s it was a very, very tough business. We almost shuttered it, I'll tell you that.
So what I'm seeing here is, and I know this is corporate, not the franchise, but this might be an opportunity for all of you who franchise to put some pressure on your corporate bonus officers. But it looks like the CEO of Domino's made $43 million in the last 3 years.
I understand that the CEO don't live in the same place.
I understand that, but I think that.
We as business owners in St. Louis have to figure out how as you as a group, how do we take that back to every local business and support and cover the expense? I understand people make more money. I'm just an average guy, you know. I'm no CEO. We make pizzas for a living. But we also, each restaurant has to go back and whatever they do, making widgets or pizzas, or we all have to figure it out. And it's a big number for the restaurant industry. I just wanted to share that.
Well, and you know, what I'll say is, you know, it kind of sounds like you all might be getting the short end of the stick too. If, you know, these corporate profits are being passed down to the franchise. So if that's the case.
No, I don't think that's totally the case. When you talk about franchisor, the way Domino's Pizza worked for me, because I started as a driver, I worked up to a shift manager, to a manager. After I became a manager, they gave me 20% of the profit of the business with no investment. I can tell you after 30 years, I have kids going to college. I'm driving a 10-year-old car. You know, I go to ball games and I see a $10 hot dog and it makes me cringe because I can't afford it. So I'm living the dream, maybe a little better than most. But I can tell you that the benefits were within our system. We've made job opportunities so people can move up and make more money. When I started, that's an entry-level job. Now our assistant managers are making more, and they earn a certain percent of the profit of the store. And then our managers earn upwards of 20% of the bottom line profit. So we have managers that have worked with our chain for 30 years. And I've also said, I've never had another job other than work down those things. So it's been a great company to work for.
But you don't really know what the salaries are for the owners here in St. Louis. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Brian, thank you so much. Next up would be Sandra Fritzer. Do we have that? And I didn't know if you're taking our place. And then again, I think, because I want to make sure I can change the talk at one, that it wait one to talk, so I do appreciate that. We're going to try to keep it short at 6 minutes, please.
My government name is Kareem Jackson. Many people in this room might know me. Testifying as a person that has worked these very jobs that you're talking about that no longer works those jobs. I'm fortunate to find a way as an entrepreneur myself, primarily working myself. But I can tell you as a former fast food employee, the struggle of working strenuous jobs, waking up 4:30 in the morning as a young person to go to a job that essentially cuts you short at every angle. There's not much room for many people to become the next version of myself. I think that the con argument lacks diversity. If you look primarily at the people that spoke in favor, against raising the wage, they were primarily white male business owners. I think that's a huge problem. I think that the analysis against the bill is really paper thin. I would like to see some diversity within the argument itself, even from the people that are against raising the wage. Maybe I could have persuaded that there was some actual diversity within the argument. The gentleman from the Tea Party, alongside with a few other people,